Let's give them another round of applause. This is a historic moment. And we shall now request save for His Excellency the President and the President of the European Council. We shall now request that all those that are standing at the podium, please resume your seats.
It's European Commission.
Yes, sorry.
Not Council.
Okay. Sorry? Okay. We would now like to proceed to the next stage of the ceremony, and I'd like to welcome His Excellency the President of the Republic of Kenya and Her Excellency the President of the European Commission to kindly take the podium. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, Madam Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, and your esteemed delegation, Mr. Deputy President, Prime Cabinet Secretary, members of Cabinet, our governors, members of the diplomatic corps, private sector representatives present here. Good morning. I have the immense honor of welcoming you all to Nairobi for this very important event. More particularly, I take this opportunity to welcome our great friend, and as a people and a nation, Her Excellency Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, together with her entire delegation who have traveled to Kenya to witness the signing of the Kenya-EU Economic Partnership Agreement. This highly positive, historic, and transformative development is the culmination of highly committed engagements anchored by long-standing cordial ties between Kenya and the 27 countries which form the EU, both jointly and severally. This salient feature of these ties include such shared values and common multilateral objectives as a strong commitment to democracy and rule of law, respect for human rights, peace and security, as well as combating climate change. Under these conditions, our trade, investment, and people-to-people relations have ensured that our ties have inevitably grown stronger and closer and flourished over time. Our presence here has been made possible by years of consistent work towards the establishment of a permanent mechanism to underpin trade and investment and transform our mutually beneficial relations, broaden two-way trade, establish new investments, and add value to the items currently being traded between Kenya and the European Union. At the core of this arrangement is our aspiration to put real money into the pockets of ordinary people, farmers, craftsmen and women, fabricators, transporters, various other kinds of workers who contribute to the manufacturing, intercontinental transport, and last-mile delivery to consumers of various products that are a subject of the signing of this agreement today. Today, therefore, is a great day for the hard-working people who often make their contribution to job creation, innovation, and value addition through micro, small, and medium enterprises and small businesses. I am talking about the unassuming lady in Kieni who rises every day without fail to tend to her little shamba of snow peas, which eventually cross seas and find their way to European dinner tables, or the many workers whose labor produce globally competitive buckets of fresh flowers, or the mango and avocado growers whose patient toil over the years have enabled us to deliver very high quality fruits to Europe and the world. It is the interests, aspirations, hopes, and dreams of these and many others that have inspired the exemplary dedication of our capable negotiating teams to remain determined to proceed beyond the Kenya-European Strategic Dialogue to the successful delivery of this economic partnership agreement. There is no doubt that trade in goods is very important for investors in our markets. However, trade in services is equally vital. As I commend the two negotiating teams led by Madam Dora Correa for the EU and Alfred Kombudo for Kenya, I encourage them to remain committed to negotiating a future agreement that will open up trade in services between markets in Europe and Kenya and enable various types of professionals, engineers, doctors, nurses, environmental technicians, clinical technicians, accountants, the performing arts like music and theater, as well as many other services to serve a freer and a bigger market. This ceremony is important because we have successfully negotiated a framework for the delivery of the bottom-up economic transformation agenda by connecting our hard-working workers and entrepreneurs with transformative opportunities in one of Kenya's biggest export markets, which accounts for 21% of our country's total exports, worth $1.4 billion, or close to 200 billion Kenya shillings. The EU's 27 member countries' 16 trillion euro market contributed 17% to global GDP and is one of Kenya's biggest trading partners, whose exports to our market now amount to US $2.1 billion. The variety of goods traded between the EU and Kenya underscores the potential of this bilateral trade framework to deliver trade and investment of volumes, diversity, and promise that we can only conclude that although today represents a moment of monumental promise, it is also the beginning of a historic partnership for historic transformation. The EU is not just a giant, lucrative market. It is a premium market whose demand guarantees higher earnings, for our products and will drive our export production to higher levels of competitiveness. The EU is one of our country's largest development partnerships, and I expect that with the signing of the Economic Partnership Agreement, development cooperation will be significantly enhanced, especially in the areas of trade and investment, and with a special focus on Kenya's commitment to pursue a transition to a green economy. With the signing of the agreement, therefore, we have a permanent investments into innovation, capacity development, and value addition in order to increase and diversify our exports into the European Union. A good example of the great positive potential arising out of this agreement is the transformation of our leather value chain. We have the third largest herd of livestock in Africa. The agreement has catalyzed our interventions to increase the productivity and competitiveness of the sector by securing a large lucrative market for finished leather products, which include industrial goods, everyday footwear, bags, straps, car interiors, and accessories. The people of Kenya will remember that I have consistently stated that most of our hides and skins go to waste. We now have an opportunity to derive value from our heights and skills, and I am very happy that this agreement has come into place. Consequently, Kenyan and European investors in the leather value chain are already benefiting from the opportunity to export to the EU. To meet the high standards required by the EU, our manufacturers have transformed their production through investment in modern equipment and processes from the EU. So it's a real partnership for us to use the raw materials we have. We're going to deploy European technology so that we can export high-quality leather products to that market. And let me conclude, through this agreement, we are signaling to the world that Kenya is ready to manufacture and export high-value premium products to Europe and to the world at large. And I trust that this ceremony will inaugurate the arrival of investments in other manufacturing areas, including chemicals, pharmaceuticals, medical supplies, and equipment. And Madam President, let me just inform you that just last week, we went out to provide infrastructure. There was an announcement last week of in the works. We're now going to provide infrastructure in those special economic zones, and we're looking forward to investments from Europe and from elsewhere so that we can use these facilities with very high incentives to develop manufacturing and value addition capabilities, especially for adding value to our products. Between myself and the county governors who are present here, we are improving the market value chain, building 400 markets across Kenya, whole agricultural value chain, all the way to the exports that will find themselves into Europe, have a trace and chain that will provide infrastructure for that to be done systematically. There is no doubt that the agreement will promote significant transformation of various value chains. We are committed to deliver our plan for Kenya through a considered value chain approach, which places emphasis on cardinal issues of competitiveness and value proposition in each of our interventions. As shown above, the agreement goes far in facilitating our preferred delivery approach for Kenyans. Further, the agreement will usher in the era of blended opportunities with the EAC, COMESA, and SCFTA mechanisms supporting attractive investment potential. I am particularly happy that this agreement we are signing today leaves the door open, and I say wide open, for our EAC partners to join into this agreement so that together as a region we can benefit from the economies of scale, and Europe can equally benefit from the economies of scale in our part of the world. In the agreement, Kenya and the EU are committed to advance their mutual trade, investment, and economic cooperation objectives sustainably through the implementation of a strong joint environmental agenda. Through the agreement, therefore, Kenya has found a like-minded partner equally committed to the transition into a green economy and towards that end to pursue sustainable trade. I am therefore proud to be here today to witness this historic milestone in our journey of national economic transformation. It is clear now, more than ever, that the future holds greater promise than was understood previously, and that agreements like this go a long way to define our promise as a nation. Madam President and your delegation, we are immensely that you have taken time during this holiday season to come in person to witness this agreement, and it speaks volumes of your commitment and the value Europe attaches to this agreement. And I want to tell you that we too immensely value the relationship between Kenya and Europe. Thank you very much. Welcome, Madam President.
Thank you very much, President Ruto. Excellencies, distinguished guests, good morning. What a pleasure to be here with you. Indeed, it is for me a very special to be here, and it's a pleasure to be back in Nairobi. And I want to express how much the European Union values this partnership with Kenya. It is very important for us. We may be on different continents, but we are so close at heart. We both champion democracy and human rights. We both are strong advocates of an international rule-free order. And in this regard, I thank you for supporting Ukraine, our neighbor, aspiring member. And I want you to know that the European Union welcomes and supports your constructive role for peace and stability in the East African region and in the Horn of Africa. Partnerships like ours are precious. Because they are so precious, in the times we live in, they need to be strengthened. And that's what we are doing here today, very concretely, with the signature of the EU-Kenya Economic Partnership Agreement. Indeed, we already have a thriving trade relationship. The European Union is Kenya's first export destination and second largest trading partner. And as it has been said, our bilateral trade amounted to more than 3 billion euros last year. But because this agreement will fully open the European market to Kenya's products as soon as with the doors open, tariff-free, quota-free. This will boost your exports tremendously. It will give an incentive to scale up, to create good jobs here. And at the same time, and this was very important for us, our agreement is fair and it is sustainable because it takes into account your need to open your market only gradually. So there's a long transformation period. Important is for you that certain products come to the Kenyan market, like the imports of machinery from the European Union that are crucial here to produce. But the Economic Partnership Agreement includes very special safeguards for agriculture and food security. So important is for us that we bring products to the Kenyan market that are necessary here to produce, but that we do not compete, so that this is a fair agreement and a sustainable agreement. This agreement also represents countless new opportunities for Kenya's businesses, as I said, to scale up and to create good jobs. And for us, it is a precious contribution to our diversification strategy. For the European Union, it is very important to strengthen our supply chains and diversify them with trusted, like-minded partners. And Kenya is a trusted, like-minded partner. So we are deepening trade ties and we are building up our own economic resilience. So this economic partnership agreement is a win-win situation on both sides. Very important for us is also that whatever cooperation and trade we have together, that, as you've said, there's added value and creation of jobs locally. This is very important, that the raw product is not extracted and taken outside the country, but that the added value is created here, that the supply chain is built here to create good jobs locally. new approach, but a very important one. Then, as you said, President Ruto, the agreement is open to the other states of the Eastern African community. And this makes Kenya a trendsetter, a pioneer. You're showing how to move forward. We encourage the other Eastern African countries to join this economic partnership agreement. They can only benefit from the regional integration. And of course, it is here in the region important also amongst yourselves to open the markets. And finally, this agreement also mirrors our shared values. It includes provisions on labor rights and on gender equality, and the most ambitious provisions on climate and environment that we have ever had in a trade agreement with an African country. Why was this possible? It is possible because Kenya is a champion what protection of climate and environment is concerned. And this is a domain where Kenya leads by example. I was here in September for the Africa Climate Summit, and you really made Africa's voice heard and you set the tone. I will never forget how strongly you advocated that you are part of the solution. It perfectly paved the way for successful COP28. And this is also your success, dear President. I want to thank you for that, for your determination and your strong stance on that one. We all know that climate change impacts Africa more than any other continent, and you know this all too well. You have recently been hit by heavy floods with devastating effects. We stood right by your side. Kenya has long understood that the green transition is the way to mitigate the destructive impact of climate change and at the same time to deeply transform your economy. You called it Go Green. You have launched your green industrialization efforts. We gladly support them via our Global Gateway strategy. Global Gateway is the European investment program abroad. And with Global Gateway, we invest almost 3.5 billion euros for Kenya's green transition. There are over 150 green Global Gateway projects here in Kenya in the making. Clean mobility is one example with the Nairobi Clean Bus Rapid Transit Line 3, obviously well known. We discussed this in March during your visit in Brussels. And I also want to mention, which is very dear to my heart, the green hydrogen strategy and roadmap for Kenya. This is something very special. We signed it together in September. Green hydrogen is the front runner of energy production for the future. The whole world is asking for it. And therefore, this roadmap is helping you towards your goal to become a clean hydrogen hub, a front runner with the European Union's financial support. So overall, you are on your best way to become a renewable powerhouse, reaching your ambitious target of 100% clean energy by 2030. But if I hear that you are already at 91% now, I have not the slightest doubt that you will reach your ambitious goal. Most importantly, it will create good jobs in the energy sector for your people, especially for the vibrant youth. And it, of course, will give people access to energy. This is one of the main jobs that we have to deliver. And on this basis, we want to go a step further. So we invite you to start working with us on a green partnership between the European Union and Kenya. There's so much to identify and good policy experiences and best practices to share and to make the green transition a success at the scale of our continents. To conclude, I want to thank you personally again, dear President, for hosting me here in Nairobi. With our economic partnership agreement, we are opening a new chapter in our very strong relationship. Now, our efforts should be focused on implementation. We have to deliver for the people, and I'm looking forward to working with you very closely on that. Many thanks. My dear friend.
Now take a few questions from members of the press, with your permission. And to the media, kindly start with your name, the media house you represent, then keep your question as short as possible. If it is directed to either of the principals, remember to mention. Over to you, members of the press, for your questions.
Oh, we are lucky there are no questions.
Hibak Said from TV47. For both presidents, a question. The exportation of mango used to be very lucrative for Kenya. What is the progress so far? Is the EU working towards it? And how is Kenya looking towards implementing that? And also, avocado exportation was recently temporarily halted. What is the progress?
Thank you very much. I think that question now would be best to answer because this is about Kenyan exports. It is true that mangoes and the whole fruit sector is a very big export opportunity for us into the EU and into other markets. It is the reason why we are developing infrastructure. The challenge that we've always had with mangoes is the market infrastructure from the farm all the way to the export point. That is why between the national government and our county governments, we are working on market infrastructure. That includes cold rooms, that includes value addition capabilities, so that we can keep the mangoes, keep the fruits in good condition that meets the highest standards of exports into the high premium, as I said here, markets in Europe and elsewhere. The challenge has been market infrastructure, the value chain infrastructure. And that is the reason why this time round we are structuring our delivery using the market value chain approach, so that at every opportunity we not only increase production, but we also facilitate all the other interventions in between to make sure that our products meet the highest quality of standards, whether it is avocado or whether it is mangoes, or indeed all the other fruits that we deal with. Let me say this agreement specifically opens, or actually throws the door wide open for us to export to a very high premium market, but we have to meet the standards that are required, and Kenyans are known for very high quality professional standards. I have no doubt in my mind that with the market infrastructure that we are rolling out, we will have the opportunity to do this. And also the opportunity that this agreement gives us to have access to European high standard machinery and value addition capabilities makes it a win-win, as you said, Madam President, a win-win agreement.
Yes, let me perhaps add to that. Indeed, first of all, one important step is that European machinery that is needed here to add value and to increase the quality will come preferential to the market. But the other way around, the export from Kenya to the European Union is completely tariff and quota free. And here I highly appreciate what you just said. It is important also that the products here, the added value to the value chain is of Kenyan origin. This is one of the topics where we're working very closely with Kenya under Global Gateway. We call it smart agriculture and sustainable agriculture. There are many projects we have together. Basically, the principle is that not only to produce here, but to add value here, and therefore to have the benefit of the whole value chain in Kenya, and then the highly specialized products go to the export.
Another question? Okay.
Okay, maybe then we can leave it there, but just to buttress what Madam President has said, that contrary to what happened before, when we just exported raw materials for processing, value addition in Europe and other destinations, this agreement specifically gives us the opportunity to add value to all our agricultural export products in Kenya, so that we create jobs here, we create value here, and we export finished products. The same way Europe will export finished products to us, we want to export, using this agreement this time around, finished products also to Europe. That is the significance of this agreement, that it appreciates that we need to add value here because we need to create jobs, because this is how friends work together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies. We'll now request that we all remain seated as I welcome the two Excellencies to proceed to the stairs there where we are going to have some photos. I'll request that they are followed by the following: His Excellency, the Deputy President, His Excellency, the Prime Cabinet Secretary, the Trade CS, MFA PS, Trade PS,
Good evening, Kenya. Thank you for choosing to watch your favorite channel. This is a roundtable media conversation with the President of the Republic of Kenya, President William Samoei Ruto, with different media organizations. Those included here are KTN News, we have TV47, Nation Media Group, we have K24, we have KBC and Citizen TV. My name is Sam Gituku from Citizen TV, and I want to give my colleagues an opportunity to introduce themselves.
Thank you very much, Sam. Mimi naitwa Ali Manzu, natoka KTN News, na tuko hapa kwenye mjadala wazi na Mheshimiwa Rais jioni ya leo.
Good evening. My name is Grace Kuria Kanja from TV47, which is under Cape Media Limited.
Good evening. My name is Paul Wafula, an editor with the Business Daily. I represent the Nation Media Group, and thank you for having us this evening.
Hamjamboni, mimi ni Daniel Kitu kutoka K24 MediaMax Network Limited.
Nami ni Kamchemenza kutoka shirika la utangazaji humu nchini KBC. Karibu mtazamaji na shukran vile vile rais kwa kutualika.
Right, and Mr. President, the last time we met on the 4th of January, you said you'd have wanted to introduce yourself. So please go ahead.
William Ruto is my name, and I work for the people of Kenya.
Great. And Your Excellency, we're here to have a conversation about a review of your presidency, which started some 15 months ago, but also to be also specific to what has transpired in the year 2023. Of course, you've had a lot of activities, you've attended different events, you've spoken a lot about your focus, your vision for the country, and tonight we want to spend some time to answer the questions of accountability, what you've been able to do, what you've not been able to do, and what the promise is in the coming years. And of course, we'll start with a question about what has just happened to the Kenya shilling, which appears to be on a free fall.
Vyema kabisa, asante sana Sam. Mheshimiwa Rais, nadhani ni wazi kwamba kichochea uchumi huwa ni sarafu ya kimataifa na jinsi inavyofanya kazi yake katika taifa lolote lile. Hapa nchini Kenya, kusema ukweli, sarafu ya dola imekuwa ikipanda. Ni kama free fall kwa sasa, yani hakuna udhibiti ama control yoyote inayoendelea. Kumbuka Mheshimiwa Rais, hii pia inachochea katika biashara za uagizaji bidhaa hapa nchini, biashara zinazoendelea hapa nchini, wafanyabiashara wanaotumia dola, na inachangia sana katika uchumi kuendelea kudidimia kwa sababu unakuta sarafu ya dola iko juu na inadhibiti. Ulitangaza awali kwamba katika siku zichache zijazo dola itaonekana ikishuka chini, lakini imekuwa ikienda 50, 151, 153. Hivi Mheshimiwa Rais, ni mikakati ipi ambayo uko nayo kwa sasa ambayo itakuwa ni ya karibu sana kuhakikisha kwamba unadhibiti hii hali ambayo inaathiri uchumi kwa sasa? Bila shaka uchumi umepanda zaidi, gharama ya maisha iko juu, bei ya bidhaa muhimu ziko juu sana kwa sababu kiwango cha dola kiko juu na hakiwezi kudhibitika.
Asante sana Ali Manzu na ndugu wenzako ambao mmekuja kunitembelea. Kwanza nataka niseme nimefurahi sana kupata muda pamoja na nyinyi tuweze kujadili mambo ambayo ni ya muhimu kwa taifa letu la Kenya. And maybe just to answer you so that we are all on the same page. The issue of exchange rate is a factor of many aspects. As you know, I came into office when there was a lot of fluid activity in the space. We had a serious situation caused by COVID. We had a big war in Europe. We have a huge drought, climate change caused by climate change. And all those factors combined to create a situation globally that increased the price of commodities that we import, increased demand for the dollar. And in fact, what has happened is that the Fed, that is the central bank of the US, if you wish, has increased interest rates from 0.25 to 5.25. In fact, in the history of the Fed, this is the steepest interest rate increase in its history. What that has done, and because every country tried, including Kenya, every country tried to enhance liquidity because of the crisis, the COVID, so everybody tried to increase money in supply. In the process, we created a very serious situation of inflation. And when inflation ran away, in fact, for some countries, inflation has gone all the way to 40%, especially in our continent. Our inflation was almost double digit. It was 9 point something. So what the world has done, and which Kenya we are doing, is to manage inflation, to manage money supply. Because if you don't manage inflation, you run into a lot of problems. So what has the US done? They increased their interest rates. And because of the increase on interest rates, there was the demand for the dollar. People who had invested outside the US began to see an opportunity in the US. And so there was a lot of dollars leaving Kenya, leaving other countries, going to the US. What does that mean? It reduces the supply of dollars. And therefore, as compared to Kenya shillings, then the situation went up. Everybody expected that the US would ease on interest rates, on increasing their own interest rates. They didn't. That was the expectation of the whole globe. That's number one. Number two, in Kenya, we were maintaining an artificial exchange rate. You had the central bank governor, Mr. Thuge, say that this interest rate of, this exchange rate of 130 that we were maintaining was artificial. I mean, it was maintained using our foreign exchange reserves. What happened? The government of Kenya spent $2.6 billion. That is almost 400 billion Kenya shillings in, supporting the Kenya shilling so that it doesn't go to its actual exchange rate.
How did they do that?
You sell dollars, Kenya reserves. You sell it to the market so that you increase supply of dollars at a price that is not the actual price, a subsidized price.
So this is the central bank. Central bank selling to the market.
Yes, the central bank of
Where
Kenya.
are they getting it from? The dollar itself.
Our reserves. We have reserves.
Yes, the reserves as of that time were just over 4-point-something months.
Yes, that is exactly what happened. That's why those reserves came down to 3-point-something months.
Mr. President.
Today, and let me just finish. So because of that artificial support, when I came in, that is unsustainable. And it is partly why we have a crisis in our economy, because we were doing things that have no market support. So what I decided is we cannot, because it was anyway going to end up in a bigger crisis. So we stopped the artificial supply of dollars into the market. That's number one. We also, and that is why the rates went up. It is better for the rates to be up and they are not supported by artificial. We are not losing any foreign currency as a country. And what has happened is that imports to Kenya have gone down because our exports are now much more attractive. In fact, the people in the tea sector, the people in the coffee sector are earning much more than they were earning before. So what has happened is we are now keeping the exchange rate at a market rate, that we are not artificially supporting it.
Yes, Mr. President, we will get to...
And what will happen is once the international economic space eases out, the dollars then, the exchange rate will then come down consistent with our own management.
Thank you. So in April last year, you did say that you will bring down, or the shilling will come down to about 115. This is an interview on accountability. That shilling has moved from 120.37. We are looking at 153.78 by Friday. And this is the central bank official rate. We also know that this is not the actual rate that actually Kenyans are spending when they go to buy the dollar. You promised that the government-to-government deal would fix this problem. Has it failed? And if so, what really happened?
Let me tell you, my brother, if I hadn't structured the G2G deal, the dollar today maybe would be at 250. That's how serious it would be. Why? Because the US Fed kept on increasing their interest rates. And you know very well that we can do the things we have done as Kenya, but we are also subject to the global economy. The G2G deal has worked. If we hadn't experienced an increase in the Fed, the dollar would be at 120 today. But because they kept on increasing the US exchange rate, our exchange rate, if we hadn't done the G2G transaction,
If we were still going to the market to look for $500 million, 60 billion Kenyan shillings every month, and in fact, many banks, by the way, were waiting for the dollar to be at 200. Yeah, they will have to wait for a while because we have done things that nobody expected would be done, and we have managed to make sure that although things are not going the way we had planned, but they haven't gone overboard.
Mr. President, when did the US Fed begin raising the interest rates?
Maybe 2 years ago, immediately after the COVID situation. That is when they began to
Meaning
increase.
they were already doing this by the time of your election?
But they were not at 5.2.
No, I'm just asking.
Yeah, they had
in
begun.
terms of what was happening.
They had begun.
I asked that because in April this year, that's when the government-to-government deal started.
Correct.
And I remember your deputy, Rigathi Gachagua, saying that those people that have dollars in their houses, it is time to sell because you're just about to suffer loss.
Yes.
Yourself, you said that you see it going below 120.
Correct.
$115 even.
Correct.
So if you have all this information, why then promise something that was also bound to the changes in the global economy?
You see,
and now you're saying it could have gone up to 200. Which figure do we trust?
Let me tell you, my friend, we live in a global environment. And I know you're saying that because when we structured the G2G, many people keep saying, but this is what's happening in this country. This is what's happening in this country. Fuel today is at diesel 200 shillings, 201 in Kenya. It's exactly the same in our neighboring countries, Tanzania, Uganda. Many people think that fuel in Kenya is artificially managed by government of Kenya. It is not.
We'll come to that.
I'm just giving you as an example, because so that you understand where we are. And I want to say this without fear of any contradiction. If we had not tamed, already we were having stockouts here of fuel because of the lack of dollars. Because all these oil companies were running around. When I came into office, the first people I met were the oil companies. And they told me, look, we can't find the dollars. You know, although we are being told dollars is at 120 something, 130, we can't find it. You know, the dollars are not there because the rates were artificial. So we came to discover later, you know, that, this dollar was being managed artificially. And that is how we realized that $2.6 billion of government money had been used, sold to banks to support an artificial exchange rate that was actually going to go the opposite direction. If we hadn't been managing the dollar exchange rate artificially, today we would be talking a different story.
Mr. President, you've been in office for 15 months, and you wouldn't want to go to what happened in the previous regimes, and that's why you're taking
I am not talking about any previous regime. I'm just giving you the facts.
That was artificially what you're talking about. Let us remain here, and we're looking at even the region, in terms of the East African region. Look at even the Uganda shilling and the Tanzanian currencies. They aren't depreciating as fast as they are, as Kenya is doing. In fact, some of those currencies are actually appreciating as we speak today. They do not have a government-to-government deal, but they are somewhere. Most of them import from Kenya. The question is, what has been the problem with the government-to-government deal, and why has it not been able to fix the slide in the Kenya shilling?
You know, the government-to-government deal is not the only thing that will fix the exchange rate. It is one of the many things, right? We are a different economy from Uganda. We are a different economy from Tanzania, right? We have much more imports. We import much more for our industries because we are a different economy for all our other services than Uganda or Tanzania does. We are not in the same category economy-wise. We are a middle-income economy. They are in a different category, not like us. So you cannot compare them and us. Then you are not comparing the same stuff. And I don't want us to talk about other countries, because then I don't want us to say which country is better than which one.
Then, Mr. President, let's talk solutions.
Yes.
Because this basically drives almost everything, right, in the country. So the question would be what you are doing to strengthen the Kenya shilling.
Precisely. That now you're talking. 3 things. Number 1, you have heard me clearly. In the last budget, I said there are things we are importing today which we should not be importing. We shouldn't be importing cement. We shouldn't be importing steel. We shouldn't be importing furniture. There are many things we are spending huge amounts of money to import when we can manufacture them locally. That is the reason why we have put a levy on the import of these unnecessary imports of products into Kenya, so that we can stem the export of our foreign currency and manufacture those items locally. Number 2, we are importing 500 billion Kenya shillings every year of food items. 500 billion. From edible oil to maize to rice to all those. 500 billion US dollars we are importing. Uganda does not import that much food. Tanzania does not import that much food. We are the only country that imports that much food. Why? Because we haven't paid as much attention to agriculture. And number 2, we need to understand that while Uganda 80% is arable with rain, Kenya only 15% is arable with rain. Tanzania is a completely different story. Almost 60% of their land has rain and is arable. Ours only 15%. That's why we are importing $500 million of food into Kenya. So what do we need to do? We need to pay attention to our agriculture. The reason why we have invested, and that is why in the manifesto that I sold to the people of Kenya, agriculture, modernization, mechanization is one of the big tickets that I decided that I'm going to do. We have changed the trajectory on our staple food. Today, we are producing more in terms of maize, which is our staple food. In fact, my plan is that by next year, we shouldn't be importing maize into Kenya. We should be producing enough. This year, we have increased our production of maize by 40%, more than we did last year. Last year, we produced 44 million bags. We are producing 61 million bags this year. And it is because we have done interventions. Fertilizer that was being sold at 7,000, we are now selling at 2,500 because we are supporting production. We are full scale into the space of edible oil that we are importing. I am working with different governors. This year, we are working on sunflower, we are working on soya, we are working on palm oil. The president of Indonesia was here. We have agreed on a whole chain because they are the biggest country that we import edible oil from. They are going to work with us to grow palm oil in Kenya. That project is being led by county governments. In fact, it is being led by Gladys Wanga, the county governor of Homa Bay, because it is in the coastal region and around Lake Victoria that we will have the biggest space and the biggest opportunity for us to produce palm oil. We are going to do more around sunflower. We are going to do more so that we also stem the tide of loss of dollars into other jurisdictions because of food imports. So these are the things that I am doing. Number 3, I am also looking at how are we going to get more foreign exchange into Kenya. That is why I am working round the clock to make sure that we have more Kenyans working in Kenya, in foreign companies when they are in Kenya, and we are also connecting Kenyans to opportunities outside Kenya. For your information, just so that I conclude, I made a commitment in our plan that we want to increase foreign remittances coming into Kenya, hard currency that comes into Kenya from foreign remittance from $4 billion to $10 billion. It is the reason why we just concluded a diaspora investment conference here in KICC this week. It is the reason why I have signed a bilateral agreement, labor agreement with Saudi, with UAE, with Germany, with Canada, and many other countries. We are exploring possibilities. And for your information, as a result of those, what I have been doing, between now and next month, January, the first 10,000 Kenyans will be leaving to go and work in foreign countries so that they can support themselves and support Kenya, because many countries have established a strategy on how to grow their foreign exchange earnings.
Na Mheshimiwa Rais, tutarudi kwa hilo swala.
On the other hand, maybe still on the government-to-government deals, is it giving us as a nation the desired results?
Absolutely.
8 months down the line?
Absolutely. In fact, that same government product or program, many countries are seeking to know how they can copy that program, because it is giving us what we couldn't have gotten in a different way.
Then how can we control the prices now? You see, fuel, it's been up and down. Right now we're talking of 210, 212 per liter.
Ali Manzu.
Yes.
You heard me say this. The price of fuel is not determined by the government of Kenya. It is not determined by any company. It is determined by the producers. That is why today the price of fuel in Kenya is the same price in Uganda, is the same price in Tanzania, because we buy from the same place.
Mheshimiwa Rais, tutakuja kwa hilo baadaye.
I've heard people say the president should reduce the price to 150.
Tutarudi kwa hilo baadaye, Mheshimiwa Rais.
How are you going to do that? Unless I take taxpayers' money and go and subsidize, which is removing money from this pocket and putting it in this other pocket.
Mheshimiwa Rais,
unaposema kwamba bei ya mafuta serikali haina uwezo mkubwa kuhusiana na bei ya mafuta. Itakumbuka kwamba wakati wa kampeni kabla hujawa rais, ulisema kwamba bei ya mafuta wakati huo, wakati wa utawala wa rais mstaafu Uhuru Kenyatta, ilisababishwa na wale ambao waliwaita cartels, na zaidi ukaeleza kuhusiana na ushuru mwingi. Nini kilibadilika?
Hakuna kitu kimebadilika. Mambo ya ushuru, nimepunguza ushuru kwa mafuta, nimepunguza ushuru ya road development levy, nimepunguza ushuru ya railway development levy, na ilikuwa kwa budget. Tumepunguza ushuru mara 4 in 4 different categories. But you see, that is not sufficient to reduce the price, because the price of oil itself is going up because of the producers.
Ni sawa kusema kwamba changamoto za kimataifa zinaathiri bei ya mataifa nchini?
You see, changamoto za kimataifa na bei ya fuel ya kimataifa imechangia. Amesema huyu mrembo kwamba tumeongeza bei ya VAT. Ni kweli, tumeongeza bei ya VAT, lakini tumepunguza ushuru zingine. Tunaongeza bei ya VAT kwa sababu gani? Kenya tuko katika kiwango inaitwa middle income economy. We are in the same category as South Africa. We are in the same category as Morocco. We are in the same category as Tunisia. I want you to check their taxes, because our taxes are now at 15.6% of GDP. 15.6% of GDP. Taxes in South Africa is 27% of GDP. Taxes in Morocco is 32% of GDP. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to answer the question, because You know, the people of Kenya are being pushed and being told, look, you are paying more taxes than other countries. Is that true? That is not true.
Na Mheshimiwa
We
Rais,
are paying the
let's give a
same
chance to
taxes
Kamche to
like all countries
Yeah.
that are in our same category. And let me tell you the difference so that you can take the chance. Let me tell you the category. If we go to the market, the countries that are in LDCs, they get a lower interest rate than those of us who are in middle income. So you cannot compare them and us. We are in a different category. And for your information, countries like France, their tax as a percentage of GDP is 45%. We are only at 15.6%. That's the difference.
na Mheshimiwa Rais, bado tuko kwa hili swala la shilingi na dola. Umezungumzia miradi tofauti tofauti hapa ambayo mmeweka katika mpango wa kuweza kupunguza hiyo dola ambayo shilingi iweze kuwa na thamani. Swala la mahindi umesema by mwaka ujao Aprili hapo pengine swala la mahindi tutapunguza kuimport na mambo kama hayo. Ukatajwa masuala kuhusu pia edible oil na miradi ambayo ipo. Lakini Mkenya pale nje anajiuliza watasubiri hadi lini hii shilingi iweze kupata thamani yake ili maisha yaweze kuwa sawa?
Wakenya watazubiri kwa sababu dola sio serikali ya Kenya inaamua. Dola ni biashara, ni kati ya zile vitu tunauza na vile tunanunua. Ndio tunapata ile uwezo wa kudhibiti. Kwa sasa kuna vitu nyingi tunaagiza kutoka nje. Na ndio nimesema ili kupunguza vitu ambazo tunaagiza kutoka nje, lazima tuanze kuzitengeneza hapa Kenya. Simiti, nimesema ya kwamba, na tumeweka katika budget ya mwaka huu, ya kwamba simiti itakuwa inatengenezwa Kenya. Kwa sababu tuko na kampuni, tutapanua kampuni ambazo tuko nazo, ndio tuweze kuokoa dola ambazo tunatumia kuagiza simiti. Chuma, tutaanza kutengeneza Kenya. Tayari tuko na kampuni ya kutosha kutengeneza Kenya. Furniture tutatengeneza Kenya.
Kwa hivyo,
chakula tutazalisha Kenya. Ndio tuweze kupunguza ile dola ambazo pesa ambazo tunatumia ya kigeni kuagiza vitu ambazo zinakuja Kenya, ndio tuweze kumanage ile exchange rate.
Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Rais, hadi hapo Mkenya ataendelea kukandamizika?
Hadi hapo, unajua sasa hakuna miujiza itafanyika. Unajua sasa wewe unataka kufanya miracles.
I think, Mr. President,
hakuna miracle. You know, this is what is happening globally.
Mr. President,
we live in a global economy and we need to understand. And it is very important for us sitting here to tell the people of Kenya that, because you know, many people are saying the price of fuel. I want to tell the people of Kenya, the price of fuel is not controlled by the government of Kenya. That's why I was saying yesterday, many people are praising me that, oh, you see, we have now begun to see the prices of fuel coming down. I told them, no, musinisifu, I have not, hakuna kitu nimefanya, ni wale wanatuuzia wameanza kupunguza bei. Na mimi nataka niwaeleze wa Kenya, bei ya mafuta hapa Kenya ni sawasawa na bei ya mafuta.
Mr. President, we'll get to fuel. We'll get to fuel. We shall get to that, Mr. President. But I want to ask something my colleague Sam asked earlier. So did you promise what you couldn't deliver?
I promised in the context of where we are. If things had stayed constant, I would have kept my promise. But you know, we live in a situation that things are changing. The world, we live in a global environment, that the prices are going up. You cannot keep unless, and I don't want to lie to the people of Kenya and say, let me spend public money so that I look like I am keeping my promise and I am doing the wrong thing. It is better for me to be brutally honest and say, this is not possible. We may have made a commitment, but because the situation changed and everybody knows what that situation is today, the prices of commodities went up. You heard Uhuru Kenyatta say he was not the one who started the war in Ukraine, you know, and all the other things. But that is okay.
You know, Mr. President,
what we must be honest to ourselves is, are we are we doing the best to manage the situation so that doesn't flip and go in the wrong direction? And I want to tell you, yes.
Mr. President, I thank you for that response. And to be brutally honest, just to pick up from where you are sitting, I think Kenyans know that it's actually true that government has a big role to play in terms of the fuel prices. It's not true that government doesn't play, because 40% of the taxes, between 40 to 45% of the fuel price in Kenya is actually government taxes. So government has a big role to play on that. I think we need to move to energy now that we are energy.
Just before that, Paul, Mr. President, I hear you, and I've listened to you carefully saying that if things had remained constant, and I was hoping that you'd explain what is that constant, because you also said
if the U.S. dollar had not been, the exchange rate was not, if the U.S. interest rate was not increased.
It was increasing already.
It was increasing, but you know, it has reached a place where everybody thought it was going to stop. But the next 3-4 increases were completely unexpected. Even today, all of us expected that they would begin to come down, but they've decided to keep it.
Okay, and Mr. President,
and you see, while my good brother here said government has
I just wanted us to say that.
A lot of say on taxes.
Yeah.
You see, my friend, while it is true that I can tomorrow say, let us reduce the taxes, it is also true that tomorrow, for every 10 shillings I collect, every 10 shillings, 7 shillings go to paying debt. Are you telling me that you want me to do what other countries have done, to default on debt? Because that's the only option I have. I can say, okay, let us pay less, and then let's tell the international community Kenya cannot service debt. Is that what you want us to do? That would be very...
And Mr. President, that's what I was asking you.
So precisely, you cannot say, it is simplistic for you to say, yes, the government can, 40% of fuel is taxes. The government can decide tomorrow to lower the taxes. But you know, those taxes we are collecting, we have education to fund. First, we have 7 shillings for every 10 to pay debt, which William Ruto did not accumulate, right? Number 2, the 3 other shillings, we have to pay our children to go to school. We have to manage our security. We have to manage our health. We have to manage everything else. We have to pay our teachers. So are you telling me I go and tell teachers, I don't have salary for you this month because I have to reduce the price of fuel? Do you think that would be reasonable?
Maybe just, Mr. President, on that issue, just hold on to that thought a bit, because if you look at the prices of fuel, what has happened is that we are looking at consumption. If I look at the last data, the last 3 months' data, consumption of fuel has actually dropped to a 5-year low. And if you look at even KRA, the collection, they missed the target. They were off the ordinary revenue by about 31 billion Kenya shillings. So what is happening is, yes, on this end, you have a plan to collect taxes, but these taxes are not coming through to Kenya Revenue Authority. And on the other end, you are killing the economy because you have people not moving, consumption, because oil and electricity basically will tell you what is happening in the economy.
For your information, your figures are wrong, because if you look at the taxes that have been collected from fuel, they've gone up. That's the correct position. So the other taxes are the ones that they have not met the targets. And why haven't they met the targets? Because I gave them a very high target.
Mr. President,
because I wanted them to do much more than they are doing.
Mr. President, let's just take a look at the data.
So don't misrepresent facts.
Let's talk about
the correct position.
The data you have from the Kenya Revenue Authority, because they're the ones who collect the revenue in their report. In the first quarter, ended September 2023, the oil taxes, the target was 84.6 billion shillings. They collected 77.7 billion shillings. Similar period last year, it was 78.5 billion shillings. That's a drop of about 800 million shillings. So indeed, for quarter one, there has been a reduction. If you're to speak about the volumes, the same quarter, diesel in 2022, quarter one, it was 1.15 metric tons, 1.5 million metric tons. This time round, the same quarter, it is 1.05 metric tons, a reduction of 56,000 metric tons. For petrol, 770,000 for quarter 1, 2022. Quarter 1 this year, it is 742,000, a reduction of 28,000 metric tons. So there has been a reduction. The difference comes in because the taxes are higher, more expensive than it was last year.
That is not the correct position, my friend.
Those are figures from KRA.
Let me explain to you.
Okay.
We import fuel for Kenya, but 40% of that fuel goes to Uganda, Rwanda, and sometimes all the way to DRC. With the eastern DRC get fuel from Kenya, right? So when you look at the figures, you must know that there is a component of fuel that is not sold in Kenya, that is sold outside Kenya. That you must
KRA reports about the revenue, isn't it?
That's what you must know first,
yeah.
Right? So when you are looking at the quantities and the numbers, you need to factor that into the equation, right? And secondly, we are beginning to look at other alternatives. A lot more people now we've connected to electricity. People who are using diesel. In fact, this year, most of our thermal energy electricity generation has gone down. Why? Because we have moved the number of Kenyans on electricity from 2.3 in 2013 to now 9.4. So we have more Kenyans who are not using diesel. We have more companies. We have more infrastructure who are using diesel that now we have connected to electricity. That explains some of the reduction. If you look at
but this is a direct consequence from the Finance Act of 2023.
That's not the correct position. I am telling you
KRA is reporting
more
it,
and more.
President.
Exactly. So why I'm telling you, the quantities that have gone down is because more people are not using diesel, especially in the big companies. If you look at what we are saying, because we have made it possible for them to use electricity. We have reduced, in certain cases, electricity for industrial power, so that instead of them powering their mechanism using diesel, they are now using electricity that we are generating. And it is partly why we have connected more people to electricity.
Je, Mheshimiwa Rais, tukisalia tu kwa swala la bei ya mafuta.
Dio.
Na hii project ama tunaweza sema hii G2G deal ama mpango wa G2G deal.
Correct.
Azma yake ilikuwa ni kupunguza hata bei ya mafuta. Je, did we achieve the required results?
Wewe ndio umesema azma yake ni kupunguza bei. Azma yake ilikuwa ni kuhakikisha kwamba number one, we have fuel. Because when I came into office, people were queuing in petrol stations for fuel. True? That was the case. Now, nobody is queuing in any petrol station. We have continuous supply. Number two, half the companies in Kenya, fuel companies, had closed down. Today, no company is operating outside the net. Every company has fuel. Number three, local companies were buying fuel in US dollars. Today, they are buying it in Kenya shillings. If you ask any Kenyan company that is selling fuel, our oil marketers across Kenya, they are very happy with the deal we structured. And number three, we have removed pressure on the US dollars. In fact, when I came into office, there are many companies who are considering relocating from Kenya. Why? Because if you can't have foreign currency to pay your dividends for companies that are not Kenyan, there was a backlog of almost 8 months of companies that had not paid dividends for their investors because there was no dollars in the market. Today, I have made sure that though the dollar is high, but it is available.
Mheshimiwa Rais, katika sikukuu ya Jamhuri ulisema kwamba uchumi wa taifa umeimarika.
Kabisa.
Siku chache kabla ya hotuba yako, Naibu Rais Rigathi Gachagua alikuwa amesema huenda ikachukua muda hata wa takriban miaka 10 hivi katika kushughulikia masuala muhimu ya wananchi. Wakati fulani waziri wa fedha Henry Rotich akasema kwamba
hapana.
Waziri wa fedha Njuguna Ndung'u akasema kwamba hali ni ngumu kwa taifa, hasa kulipa mishahara na masuala mengine ambayo yanahusiana na fedha. Hali ya uchumi iko vipi Mheshimiwa Rais?
Na tukisalia hapo, Prime CS Musalia Mudavadi amesema 3 years. You know, to quote him verbatim, he's forecasting a difficult 2 to 3 years, asking Kenyans to bear the burden. So just like Kitu here is asking, during your manifesto launch, Mr. President, you called it the plan. Is there a plan for economic recovery? Because you are saying this, your deputy is saying another thing, Treasury CS, a different thing, Prime Cabinet Secretary. I mean, this should be one government that speaks in one voice. And Kenyans themselves, Mr. President, wanaumia.
Wakenya wanasikiza pia, huyu anasema hivi, huyu anasema hivi.
Tuliza boli.
Tumelituliza. Nani msema kweli?
Sikizeni. Nimesema hivi, nataka kuwajibu nyinyi wote watatu. Mimi nimesema, if you read my statement, I said our economy today is out of debt distress. And that is the truth. For your information, if I didn't step in, let me even say, if I wasn't president, the kind of decisions I have made, very difficult decisions, you know, very painful decisions. Decisions that I know they will cause pain, but it is better we make those decisions now than get Kenya into debt distress. There are almost 8 countries in our continent, including one that went into debt distress. I don't want to mention countries, you know them, last almost 3 weeks or 1 month. That is the worst thing that can happen to any country, to go into debt distress. We are now out of debt distress. Our economy is stable, but the difficult patch is still there. We still have to navigate. All we have done is to avoid the cliff, right? That we have avoided because we have negotiated, we have put brakes on expenditure. We have negotiated a good package with the World Bank, with IMF, with development partners, with bilateral countries, China, Europe, and everywhere. And that's why I have been on the road so many times. People ask, what is he doing? It was necessary for me to step in and stabilize so that Kenya does not go into debt distress. Let me tell you what Ndung'u was saying. Ndung'u was in parliament.
That's actually where I was headed. He says the government is broke.
Ndung'u was in parliament, and he was being pushed. Oh, you need to do this more. Ndung'u was telling them, look, we don't have the kind of money you're talking about. We don't have money to increase this and to increase this and to increase this. That is the correct position. We have, and that is why we are cutting back on many aspects, because this is what is required at this point in time. It is the difficult decisions we have to make now so that tomorrow looks better.
Mheshimiwa Rais, ufafanuzi wako wa uchumi kuimarika ni nini wakati ambapo Wakenya wengi wanalalamikia gharama ya maisha?
And you see, what Musalia is saying is for us to be able to get to a place where we can say we are good, you know, that things are moving, there is money in the pocket, we can feed ourselves, we can do everything. It takes time, right?
How long?
And it takes time because
how long, Mr. President?
You want me to say 3 months, 5 months, 1 year?
No, you're quoting your Prime Cabinet Secretary who says 2 to 3 years.
Relax. Yeah. Because we are not in charge of all the factors that will finally determine where we are going, let us give ourselves time. But I want to promise the people of Kenya that we will sort this situation out.
Mheshimiwa Rais, unaposema uchumi umeimarika, ufafanuzi wako wa uchumi kuimarika ni nini, hasa wakati ambapo Wakenya wanalalamikia gharama ya maisha?
Number one, na ni vizuri umeuliza gharama ya maisha. Gharama ya maisha inachangiwa na vitu vitatu. Ya kwanza ni gharama ya chakula, right? Na nikisema uchumi iko na uchumi ya tumbo. Nataka nikuulize na Wakenya wenzangu, tumefanya lolote kupunguza gharama ya chakula? Yes, we have done major steps. The price of food items is today lower than it was a year ago. It is a fact. Lakini, of course, it's not convenient for certain people to accept. That's number one. Number two, globally, where is Kenya? Uchumi wa numbers, and these are not my figures. We've brought down inflation from 9 point something to now 6.8. Those are figures, global figures of the World Bank. Number two, our economy is growing at 5.4%. Not my figures, World Bank figures, right? In fact, they quote Kenya is the 29th fastest growing economy globally. Those are figures out there. Of course, many people don't want to accept. I know that there is still no money in people's pockets. Uchumi wa mfuko
bado
ndio bado. Yeah?
Utakuwa lini?
Are we doing something about it? Yes. That is why we're spending more money in education. Yeah? We're putting more money in education. In fact, this year, we are putting an extra 120 billion in education. To do what? To make sure that we reduce outlay by Kenyans to fund education. Number two, we are putting more money in health. That is why we've passed 4 laws. What do we want to do? We want to make sure every ordinary citizen has a health insurance. Those who are paying 500 will come down to 300. We are going to make sure that we don't leave nobody behind. That is why I am going out of my way to create jobs. Today, as I talk to you, because you need to put money in people's pockets. Today, as I talk to you, 120,000 people are working in a housing program. Today, as I talk to you, we are working on export of labor, making sure that we connect Kenyans to jobs abroad. Today, as I talk to you, we are expanding the space of digital jobs. We just passed the law so that we can create ICT hubs across Kenya. I have already negotiated for digital jobs globally. Kenyans are very good at it. We are going to spread opportunities so that people can put money in their pockets. So that's why I'm saying we need a plan. You know, it is easy to say, let us do quick fixes. We have been doing quick fixes for a long time, and we haven't gotten it right. Many people wanted me to do a quick fix by subsidizing unga. I told them, let us not subsidize unga. Let us promote production. We will eventually get the right results better.
Mheshimiwa Rais, awali kulikuwa na mazingira mazuri pengine ya kufanyia biashara. Tunavyoona sasa, sijui kama palikoseka wapi, pengine unaweza kutueleza, manake kulikuwa na mazingira mazuri ya kufanya biashara. Kuna takwimu ambazo zimetolewa hata na FKE nadhani wakisema kwamba kuna makampuni ama kuna Wakenya takriban 70,000 ambao wameachishwa kazi. Katika serikali yako mheshimiwa, palikoseka nini haswa pale mpaka mazingira ya kufanya kazi yakawa magumu kiasi cha kwamba 84% ya Wakenya wanasema kwamba maisha ni magumu, na hizi ni takwimu ambazo ziko zaidi ya 50 kwa mara ya kwanza katika Mkenya kusema kwamba maisha ni magumu na pesa haionekani.
Na tukisalia hapo, Mr. President, because it's just based on what she said, are you aware that 87% of Kenyans, your people, Mr. President, that is 9 out of 10, have opted to reduce on personal expenditure because of the current economy? Watu wana opt kutokula, which is what we're talking about, uchumi ya tumbo. They're foregoing food because of the current situation.
Good. I want you to read a clip or even a text. It was in the Standard. 10 months after Kibaki became president, the same number of Kenyans said NAC and President Kibaki had made their life worse than ever because Kibaki decided to make the right decisions, not popular decisions, right? 10 months after he was president. We are in the same space. But let me tell you the following. That it is true. We are facing a difficult situation. We are facing a difficult situation because that is the global situation. But are we doing something about it? Yes, we are doing something about it. Is it bearing results? Yes, it's bearing results. The price of food is coming down because of our intervention, by God's grace. The global economy is appreciating what Kenya is doing. Let me go to FKE. FKE said 70,000 Kenyans have lost jobs or have gotten out of jobs. Part of those 70,000 Kenyans, for your information, are teachers who are working in private schools, who we have hired as government. Now they are teaching in, we have hired 56,000 teachers as teachers. We have hired an additional 120,000 people working in our housing program. We have a plan to make sure that we keep increasing. We have only 31 sites of our housing program. We have another 34 that will be rolled out the first quarter of next year. By the end of next year, we will have between 200 and 250,000 Kenyans working. So the economy is adjusting towards where we want to go. We do not want to be an export destination for others. We also want to produce what we should be producing. And that is why we are working on the difficult patch for now so that we can stabilize the future.
Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Rais, unakubali kwamba Wakenya 70,000 kweli walifutwa kazi ama walikosa kazi?
Sikubali, wao ndio wamesema. Mimi nimekuambia.
Na wakaandikwa na serikali. Kumaanisha ni makampuni yaliyo humu pengine yalifunga wakatoka ndo wakaja wakaandikwa na serikali, ama hawa walikuwa ni wa kutoka wapi?
Waacha sasa nikwambie, wale wamesema, yale wamesema. What I have told you is what I can vouch. Have I hired 56,000 teachers? Yes. Are there 120,000 people working in our housing program? Yes. So as to what on FKE side, you need to verify the figures.
Mr. President, Sam, just 1 second. You have talked about pain and that Kenyans need to, appreciate the pain and the process like President Kibaki did. And State House and where you sit, you set the tone for whatever government agencies and officers below you do.
That's correct.
And you are asking Kenyans to be patient. You're asking Kenyans to tighten their belt. But if you look at your administration and State House, to be specific, and other officials, look at foreign travel has been up 26% just this ending quarter to 1.1 billion. And Kenyans are feeling quite taxed. And the hustlers that you represent are looking around the numbers that we are discussing today, and they're wondering,